Hello, and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 2243. The topic is mindset, and the title is What to Do When You're Overwhelmed. One of my clients is feeling this way. They're struggling through some work-related stress and work-related travel, along with family events. Now, the family events are actually happy stuff. It's like birthdays and vacations and things. But it still adds to the chaos that they are feeling in regards to disruptions from their normal habits. Their normal routine is what they find comfort in, what they know they're going to make progress with. So what do they do when they can't do the normal routine? That is what we're working through now. She expressed that she feels like things are spiraling out of control, and she wondered what can she do about that? How can she regain control when she feels like things are out of her control? The advice that I gave her is something I thought would be fun to share and helpful to share in a podcast, and that advice is to reset. So when things feel like they're spiraling out of control, we need to reset. Specifically, we're talking about the acronym of RST. So RST, reset. The R stands for reduce. What I advised her to do and what we were working through was to reduce what she's trying to control. I had her list everything, and we know that that's going to be incredibly overwhelming. But as her and I were talking, she was expressing that she was already mentally juggling everything she had going on at work, everything she had going on with the family events and travels, and then also fitness and nutrition and all of her personal goals. It was already like rattling through her mind. So I said, why don't you just click a timer, take a 3-minute timer or maybe a 5-minute timer. Don't do more than that because you're going to cause a bunch of anxiety for yourself. So set a timer and list everything that you can think of that you feel like you need to control. I said, don't worry about putting it in order. When it pops in your head, write it. So she did that, and it was a nice long list, and she said that was funny enough. It was starting to feel panicky because then she was wondering if she was missing something that wouldn't be on the list. But then she said it actually felt good because as she started to see, as she was writing stuff down, she automatically started to say, well, that isn't as important as this thing. Or this isn't as important as that. Or how the hell am I actually supposed to be able to do that while I'm doing all these other things? So she was already being able to kind of filter through when she was writing things down, what were the more important components compared to other components. And then we also played the game of what can be delayed. A piece of advice that I gave in a very, very, very old podcast, probably 2,000 plus podcasts ago, was the concept of when we're struggling with things in life and we're trying to juggle all the balls that are given to us in life. Some of the balls that we try to juggle are made of glass and some are made of rubber. Meaning, if we drop the glass ones, they shatter. Not good. But if we drop the rubber ones, they bounce back. In that original podcast, one of the things I was emphasizing was that relationships are often treated like rubber, but they need to be treated like glass. We need to take a little bit more care of the relationships we have. There's that phrase, you always hurt the ones you love the most. I hate that phrase. I understand why that is believed to be what happens, but sometimes people think of that as like advice, like, well, that's, just the way it is. Bullshit. Change it. That's the way it is. Doesn't mean it has to be the way it's, is for you. So I never liked that. So I always wanted to prioritize my closest relationships above people who I didn't know. So why would you hurt the people you love the most and then take care of strangers? I'd rather take care of the ones I love, and if I disappoint a stranger, I'm sorry, good luck to you. There's probably other people in your life that can fill the gap that I didn't fill. And then when we think outside of relationships, we think of nutrition, training. She's trying to make sure that she has certain projects done in time for her to go for a week-long trip. So she's trying to double up basically her work before she goes on a trip. When she goes on the trip, she feels the need to schedule and kind of book everything, be like the travel, advisor. So we were talking about, hey, there are some things here that we can do like the 4Ds: defer, delegate, delete, and then if we're going to do it, how do we do it efficiently? So I said, you have a spouse, so defer some of this crap to them. Get them to do something. And if they're overwhelmed, say, hey, can you just take one or two? And that's at least one or two things I don't have to do. If you have older kids, put them in charge. They're going to need to learn these life skills. So maybe you need to double check it after they do it, but at least you didn't have to do all of it. You just have to double check it. But can we delegate some of the things to other people in our life? Can we defer? So if there are certain things that we feel like need to be done today. So for example, do you need to do the dishes in the sink today? Probably not. Do you need to do laundry tonight? Probably not. There are certain things in life that we can defer to the next day or the next week. And then there are certain things we can delete, just completely get rid of. They're not absolutely necessary in this moment. So maybe she has, I know, like for myself, I like to send out weekly newsletters to my clients. But sometimes whenever I'm traveling or there's a lot going on, a lot of client competitions, I will sometimes miss that weekly newsletter. It isn't something that the clients pay for as specifically part of their service. It's something I just started to do as a fun thing to do. But if I need to just delete that for the week, I'm sure they'll understand and not give me too much gruff about it. And then I just try to pick it back up when I can. But that's an example of something for myself that I can delete, but it doesn't take away from the quality of the service. It doesn't take away from anything of significance. And then the fourth D of that list is if we're going to do something, make sure we're doing it as intelligently, as efficiently as possible. So that's what we went through. As we went through her list and we applied the 4Ds. What could she delegate? What could she defer? What could she delete? And then if she was going to do it, we talked about how do we do it most efficiently. And that leads us to the S of RST. S stands for simplify. So the things we're going to do, how do we do those efficiently? And another word for that is to simplify what we do. When we look at nutrition, what I advised her was, and she knows this, so we already been talking about this, but I reminded her and kind of like refocus, is what really matters is our calories. Now, we can look at calories per week. Then you can go smaller to calories per day. You can go smaller than that to calories per third of the day. Those are the time frames that we look at. And what that refers to is if she has some plane flights and some chaos, and maybe on like a Thursday and or a Saturday or something, she's super high or super low in calories. She missed that 24-hour mark. I would say, hey, we know what our daily average should be across the week. Can you adjust some of your other days to still hit within that range that we want for a weekly average? So we would like pull back and look at the macro. The bigger picture is per week calories. Now, you don't want too many extremes too often. So you can't have one day of 500 calories, the next day of 5,000. That isn't going to maximize body composition. You can still control body weight with high fluctuations on a weekly basis, but you're not going to maximize body composition, which is what most people do want to do, not only just managing their weight. So then we look at per day fluctuations. Can we stay within a certain calorie range per day? And then our way to actually make per day easier is to look at per third of the day. We sleep for 6 to 8 hours in the day. That leaves us awake for 16 to 18 hours. We can divide that up to 3 sections of around 5 to 6 hours. In the first 5 to 6 hours of the day, can we hit a third of our calories in protein, whether that's 1 meal or 2 meals? In the middle 1/3 of our day, the middle 5 to 6 hours, can we hit 1/3 of our calories in protein? Again, just 1 or 2 meals usually. And then at the end of the day, the final 5 to 6 hours of being awake, can we hit the final 1/3 of our calories in protein? And again, that's usually 1 or 2 meals. The benefit of that is you only have to track 1 or 2 meals at a time. So if the person knows they're supposed to get 600 calories per 6 hours, they would say, okay, what did I eat for breakfast? I had 450 calories. Well, if I want a little bit of a mid-morning snack, I have 150 calories. This protein bar, is 160, close enough. Now I know I got within my range. I don't need to pay attention to those 2 meals anymore. I'm now going to move on to the next 6 hours. So at the end of the day, they don't have to remember what they've had all day. They just manage 1 to 2 meals at a time per 5 to 6 hours of the day. That actually is a micromanaging way that actually reduces anxiety and stress on our regular basis, our regular schedule. Now, when she's traveling, when things feel chaotic, when life is just everywhere but where we normally are, per 5 to 6 hours can be a little intimidating, a little anxiety provoking. So then we just span out to the per 24 hours. So maybe I missed breakfast. I, crapped the bed on the first 6 hours, didn't even eat anything. Well, I know, okay, if I normally have 1,800 calories, what can I get in for lunch that'll get me somewhere halfway through, So maybe they can find 1,000-calorie lunch. That sounds like a huge lunch, but that still leaves 800 calories later in the day, which is actually challenging for some people to get in. But they have 1,000-calorie lunch, 800-calorie dinner, or maybe they have a dinner and a small little snack before bed. If they hit their 1,800 calories, they did a great job. So being able to pull in and out on our scope of calorie control, whether that's per week, per day, or per 5 to 6 hours, it gives us more or less control, more or less focus that matches what we have the ability to control and focus on given what's going on around us. So that's an example of simplifying what we do, is not worrying about what we're eating. And we don't even have to worry about when we're eating if we don't need to. We can just look at it per 24-hour day. Or if we screw up a whole day, let's just look at it at a week. So let's simplify it to calorie control. The second level, if we're able to do so, would be protein. Can we get in a certain amount of protein per 24 hours and then per 5 to 6 hours? So that's the idea, that if I can't have, chicken, rice, and broccoli, if that's my normal meal, what can I have that gets me the appropriate calories and protein that's available to me? So maybe it's not chicken, maybe it's some white fish, maybe it's some shrimp, maybe it's, steak. And then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, well, I'll have to swap the calories that I normally have for rice for the fat calories that are in this steak. And then I still ended up about where I'm supposed to be calorie-wise. Maybe I actually have a little more protein than I normally would. But hey, I got it. I got the calories. I know I hit my protein minimum. Successful. That's the idea, is being able to modify what and when we eat, but keeping the big picture, most important components, which would be calorie control, in control. So the concept of reset, RST, is to, again, reduce what we're trying to control, simplify how we can control it. And then the T is your timeline. Most often what people are trying to do is they're trying to do everything at once. So they're like, okay, I need to do this today, but I need to do this thing that I need to have for Friday. Maybe I can get that done today so I don't have to worry about it by Friday. And they just overload the now. They're trying to do everything that needs to be done in the now, plus all the things that need to be done soon, but they're trying to do all of it now. So with the T for timeline, it is a reminder for us to reduce the timeline of what we're trying to control, what we're trying to do. Often, as I said, people try to do too much too narrowly of a time frame. So they're trying to do too many things by the end of the day, or too many things within the next hour. So by us being able to reduce what we want to do, that automatically helps us trying to do less as fast as possible. For us simplifying what we're trying to do, that again helps us do a little bit less. There's less elements to juggle and balance. So now all of a sudden our timeline, the things that we're trying to control, we are now down to the most important and how we can do them in the most efficient way. That automatically makes our timeline a little bit easier. So we want to think through the process of starting at the end. So my nutrition, what do I want by the end of the day? Where do I need to be calorie-wise? Where do I need to be protein-wise? Maybe you think of work projects by the end of Friday. So where do I need to be by Friday? Maybe you have the family trip coming up and you're leaving on Saturday. There are certain things that you can actually book once you get where you're going, but maybe there's certain things you need to do ahead of time, like plane tickets. So you think, okay, what do I need to have done before Saturday? And then what can I do after Saturday? Or maybe I can do it on the plane. Just what do I need to do by Saturday? When you have your end timeline, you would then say, okay, what are the tasks that need to be done by that timeline? When is the latest that I can do that task? What is the most efficient way that I can get that task met? Meaning, what are the least amount of things I have to do to meet that requirement? And then, given that, what day do those things need to be done? Do they need to be done today, or can they be done tomorrow? For the things that need to be done today, what can be done in the next 30 minutes or 60 minutes? What can be done in the next 3 or 4 hours? And what just needs to be done before you go to bed? Our goal is to essentially compartmentalize the things we need to do and when they need to be done, And then once we have them scheduled out, we only think of the compartment in the next action. What am I doing in the next 5 minutes? What am I doing in the next 30 minutes? What am I doing in the next 60 minutes? Just get down to the smallest time compartment that contains an action. So if I want to write a client program, depending on the client, they take me around an hour to do because I do everything from scratch. I don't do templates. I don't copy and paste programs. So they take me about an hour to write. So I know, okay, if I want to get 3 programs done by the end of the day, I have to find 3 hours within my day. Well, it looks like maybe Meredith and I are going to an appointment in an hour and a half. I can get 1 program written, and then maybe I can make a social media video because I won't have time to get a whole nother program written, but I could do a 20-minute social media video. So I do a program, I do a 20-minute social media video, we go to the appointment, and now when I come back, I know that I have to find another 2 hours later in the day. But that's a later in the day problem. I know right now, if I start that program, I might have 20 minutes left to do that social media video. So let me do that program. And I just focus on the program. Then after the program, I'm like, okay, how much time do I have? Hey, I do have the 20 minutes. Let me just focus on this social media video. That's the goal, is getting down to individual tasks and then saying, okay, what's the next one I need to do? And let me not think past that until I have it done. So when things are spiraling out of control, when we're feeling overwhelmed, how we can regain control is to reset. RST. Reduce, simplify, and then consider your timeline. If we practice going through these steps, you will get better at doing them every single time you face this situation, which you will face in life. But you'll get better and more efficient at it, and then all of a sudden it'll become kind of second nature, and you're doing it without even know you're doing it. That's the goal, is we're always managing stress before it feels overwhelming. And are you going to be able to do that all the time? Hell no. But over time, will you be able to manage more things before feeling overwhelmed? Absolutely. I always laugh looking back at business and how overwhelmed I felt in the first few years compared to the things I juggle and balance now, which are far beyond those first few years. So it's been fun to see my own growth, specifically in business, on how I've been able to better manage the stress and better actually include relationships and self-care, which I previously struggled to do so. So I hope that this advice helps. If you have any questions, if you need any help through it, just shoot me an email at brutalirongym@gmail.com. I'm always here and I'm always happy to help. Cool. Well, if you like the podcast, please share the podcast. The more people we share it with, the more people can help. If you like the podcast, you can consider donating to support the podcast. There is high hosting costs and whatnot. You can do a donation on our website, or you can buy your supplements from Nutricost.com. That's actually where I buy mine. You can use the code BrutalIron10 for a 10% discount. And then whatever you spend, we get a 10% commission. So you get great supplements at a great discount, and you give back to a great cause, hopefully. Hopefully you consider it a great cause. But if you like the information we share in the podcast, you can find more from us in our social media channels. You can find us and follow us on Instagram and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Gym. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.